Today's discussion will be presented in 3 sections since we are recording this session for broadcast on Federal News Radio 1500 AM. Feel free to post questions and comments during the session, and we'll try to get to them answered online. We're pleased to welcome our moderator, Tom Temin, host of the Federal Drive on Federal News Radio 1500 AM and federalnewsradio.com. Let me turn over the reins to Tom to begin today's discussion.
Welcome and thanks for joining us. My guest today is Chris Niehaus. He is the Senior Director for National Cloud Programs at Microsoft. Chris, great to have you on.
Tom, thank you for having me.
So Microsoft has a government-dedicated cloud. Tell us how it was built, how it was architected, and some of the thinking behind the way you went about it.
Absolutely, thank you. First and foremost, our guiding principle for all of the services and solutions that we deliver for the federal government or for all government is delivering products that they can trust. And we looked at that view with our cloud products as well. And if you look at our history with Microsoft, with the federal government, we go back as far as 1997 of delivering a dedicated email service to the Army called Defense Messaging System. And really
I remember it well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you shouldn't have been using it at home much. But that solution was developed specifically to meet the compliance requirements of the Army and also to be able to withstand the rugged downrange requirements. And that taught us a lot about how to collaborate well with government. And we took those solutions and we brought them into our commercial products and services, and even those learnings exist today in what we call Office 365 for government, which is a productivity platform email system in the cloud. And that solution was delivered a few years ago, and we continued to carry that forward to round out a government cloud, which now includes Azure Government and CRM Online Government, launched back in December. And this gives us at Microsoft the ability to claim that we're the only hyperscale cloud provider today that offers the full government cloud solution set that goes from infrastructure to data to platform services all the way through productivity and business applications. And so this fits well with our tradition and our long legacy of delivering for government, and we meet all of the compliance certifications such as CGIS or FedRAMP and DISA, and we go even further on some like IRS 1075, which you'll talk about a little bit later. But at the end of the day, what we're proud of is that we can claim that we are a cloud provider that believes a government cloud is only for the business of government and only for government customers.
So does the government tend to ask for a cloud that is dedicated only to government, or
yes,
could you sell them on something that's not government unique, but it's a better shot?
The first time we came into the market, we actually took, there was the FISMA certification or compliance requirement is what was the bar for meeting government certifications. And we were able to do that with our commercial cloud of Office 365. But we learned from that the government still viewed, we have a community and we have a set of bars or higher standards in order for you, Microsoft or any vendor, to really get our trust, thinking beyond just productivity and backup and recovery and actually thinking about mission critical applications. And so we took that feedback very seriously, and we took our entire suite of cloud services and built a dedicated government cloud that is physically isolated, network isolated, has cleared U.S. personnel running it, has 2 data centers only in the U.S. dedicated to it, one in Virginia, another in the middle of the U.S. And that's driven a great dialogue with government going forward.
And so if a cloud, one of the selling points of cloud is that it is scalable on demand,
yep,
or you can pull back on demand depending, yep, on what the demand is.
Yep.
When you have a dedicated set of data centers with finite capacity, how do you handle the scaling issues when government says, hey, we need 10,000 more users all of a sudden?
Well, that touches on a really good point of probably taking a step back. We have a global footprint of data center regions of more than 24 and growing right now. And these range everything from a large, massive regional data center in Dublin that powers multinational corporations in Western Europe, down to the sovereign way called the sovereign government cloud that we talk about just for the US, or that sovereign US government cloud. It's all the same technology. It may be physically isolated or have different compliance requirements, but we have a set of trusted cloud principles that span our approach on how we build and manage and operate all of our cloud services that allow us to do that even from the largest to the smallest. And so even our sovereign cloud for US government, we have the ability to quickly add capacity, very instantaneously add capacity, keep growing it. We work very well with our customers to forecast those demands and needs.
Now let's talk about cloud services, because they range from just bare infrastructure all the way up to the complete hosted applications.
Correct.
What do you see in terms of what the government is demanding?
Yep.
And give us a range of offerings that you have from starting with bare metal or infrastructure as a service.
Well, I would actually phrase it more on what have been the waves of adoption of cloud services. The first wave was really around productivity. A lot of customers looking at that hosted email service. And we were in a position where our email service exchange server was really the number one in the market, and we were able to successfully migrate those customers into the cloud. Then when we look at infrastructure, to your point, the scenarios there were more about dev and test, web applications, and disaster recovery. And that wave is still ongoing, and it's required things like compliance, meeting compliance requirements like FedRAMP, and then the DISA levels of compliance as well, which we do. This next wave that we're experiencing right now is actually focused on mission-critical systems, moving those mission-critical applications to the cloud. And those will really come in two flavors. Ones that will have a higher bar for compliance and security that you have to strive and meet, and then others that will maintain the requirement to stay on-premise as well and have what we call a hybrid scenario, where you can connect an on-premise data center to a cloud and securely manage it and control your data. That first wave we're aggressively going through right now, and it's by pursuing what we call industry-specific or deep compliance certifications. One of them is called CJIS, which is the Criminal Justice Information Services. And we partnered with the Justice Department and the FBI to get to a point where we would, as a company, sign the addendum certifying that our cloud would meet those CJIS requirements. And we're the only cloud provider that does that today. And that has allowed for really an explosion of growth around things like surveillance and police video scenarios. And I think anybody watching the news lately knows that whether it's a body camera or whether it's a drone on the border, those types of scenarios are growing exponentially. And we're able to satisfy that need through that approach.
So right now then you're up to everything from email on up to mission critical applications and data.
Absolutely. And data, while data is exploding in growth both on-premise and in the cloud, it's the ability to manage it in a compliant way and then do very interesting things with it. So back to the police video one, for example, it's not just the storage of that data, but if you need to run a Freedom of Information Act requirement or manage it from a case management through federal courts, for example, as a piece of evidence, we have services in the cloud that can take that data, index it, slice it, dice it, package it, put it through an actual through an evidence management chain, stamp it, retain it a certain way. So it's not just the storage, it's what's the mission of that required department, and what are they trying to do, and can you do it with cloud services?
So it's your applications and their applications.
Absolutely.
And so the infrastructure is really irrelevant then what's underneath, as long as they get the applications they want running.
I think the infrastructure is relevant as long as it's an open and flexible cloud infrastructure. So I think customers need and demand choice. They certainly want to have the ability that if they're running a set of open source or Linux, they want to be able to bring that in the cloud and not feel like big bad Microsoft is going to stop them from doing that. And we say it pretty openly and clearly. We love Linux. We love open source now, and our cloud has really allowed us to kind of move into that next generation of approach. Additionally, I would say that the hybrid scenario, sort of, I think what you mentioned is that freedom to say, yeah, I have these applications or this data on premise. I'm used to securing it and controlling it. I want to be able to move it into the cloud or have it in both places at once or have elements of it in both places and be confident and secure that I maintain that control, that it's secure, and that I also have what I would say is the transparency to understand how Microsoft will manage that. And that actually speaks to our trusted cloud principles, which are security, privacy and control, transparency and compliance. And each one of those we go very deep on with our customers so that they understand what our commitment is to the cloud.
Chris Niehaus is the Senior Director of National Cloud Programs at Microsoft. I'm your moderator, Tom Temin. The show is What You Need in a Government Cloud You Can Trust, sponsored by Microsoft on Federal News Radio 1500 AM and federalnewsradio.com.